Hi, this is Dr. Gordo, and welcome to the Raven and the Writing Desk. We're continuing our series on English spelling patterns, and today we're looking at soft and hard sounds formed by the letters C and G. So these letters produce a couple different sounds depending on the letters they're surrounded by, so let's take a closer look. First, let's take a look at the soft C. It makes a sissing noise. We can hear it in the words pencil, sell, fancy. So the C in these words is either being followed by an I or an E or an Y, as opposed to other letters which produces what's called a hard C, such as the word cat. So compare the word cat to fancy. Fancy, cat. Notice the different sound the C is making in those two words. And if you want to know more about that hard C sound, we actually have a whole video committed to it. So it can be a challenge to know when to use the soft C instead of the letter S. Because again, we're making an S sound, so it stands to reason that we'd use the letter S. Note that the letters CE are more common than the combination CI or CY. If you look at the words center, ceremony, certain, audience, appearance. So going back to what was said in the last slide, it's all about the other sound that's coming along with the S. If you know it's being made by an E, an I, or a Y, chances are you're going to use the letter C. We can see more examples of this when we compare adjectives to their noun form. Adjectives that end in ANT or ENT will usually have a noun form that's written ENCE or ANCE. For example, silent becomes silence. Ignorant becomes ignorance. This is also a good time to point out an important difference between so-called British spelling and American spelling. The words sound the same, accent aside. But in spelling, the British prefer to spell things ENCE, whereas the Americans will spell them ENSE. Great example, the word defense. The American spelling DEFENSE, whereas the Canadian spelling, the British spelling ENCE. You can use either forms. Whatever spelling form you prefer, you can go with. Some people say, well, if you're going to choose American spelling over the British, be consistent. And I think consistency is a bit of a relative term. Just go with what you feel is the spelling you're comfortable with. As long as you're being understood, that is our goal here today. Now, that said, you might want to think about the way you spell practice going forward. The, again, so-called American spelling, the word practice, ICE, can be used both for the act of practicing and a noun as a place. So, the boys are going to hockey practice to practice hockey. In the American spelling of that sentence, practice is spelled the same, ICE. Whereas in the British version, they differentiate. If you're going to a practice, that's ICE. That is the noun. Versus the verb to practice is spelled ISE. So going forward, you might want to decide, well, I kind of like that. If I'm using the verb to practice, I'm going to go with ISE as opposed to the noun, you're going to a place to practice, ICE. If the sound S is heard at the end of a single syllable word, it's usually spelled SE. CE. If the CE follows a long vowel, or it's following the letters N or R. Take a look at the words lace, nice, France, race. So in these words, it's a little more clear because if you replace that CE with an S, those words are just not going to look right. Now, if you can hear the word C at the end of a multi-syllable word, you're going to spell it CY, such as the words buoyancy, democracy, secrecy. So compare secrecy to lace, and you'll hear that that sound at the end are definitely different, so it makes sense that we're going to switch the E to a Y to create that more distinct sound. So to bring this all home, take a look at the words and listen to the words fence, clown, crazy, cat, scent, Lucy, Coke, pencil, pick. What pattern do you see with the letter C? Or what do you hear? What you should be hearing is if the sound S is heard before I, E, or Y, use the letter C. Use CE when the sound S is singular and heard at the end of a one-syllable word like fence. We're going to use CY when we hear the sound C at the end of a multi-syllable word such as democracy. Of course, we're going to have exceptions that we need to commit to memory. The words scene, scent, science, scissors, ascend, descend, chase, base, case, rinse, sense, tense. Of course, if we're adding a suffix to these words, there's going to be a spelling change. And so you may know some general rules, such as if a word ends in a Y and it's singular, such as city, and we want to pluralize it, we're going to change the Y to an IE and add the S. Just like the word fancy, if you want to make that word past tense, fancied, we're going to drop the Y and change it to an I and add ED. But of course, there's always exceptions on top of exceptions, such as if you're in the act of fancying, we're just going to add ing to the word fancy, and the words like crazed in English. Crazed is not IED, but ED. So that Y is just simply disappearing altogether. In English, there's lots of exceptions to spelling. That's why we're trying to determine some patterns here, but we're not always going to be successful. Moving on to the soft and hard G. A soft G makes a J sound, like the word gentle, as opposed to the hard G in the word good. The soft G is usually followed by E, I, or Y. Take a look at the words giant, Jim. Of course, we already had gentle. As opposed to the hard G is usually followed by an A, O, U, L, or R. Magic, gun, glad, grow. And I say usually follows because there are too many exceptions to list here. Words like get, give, girl are all going against this rule. The English language borrows heavily from other languages. And when words are adopted into the English language, the sounds usually are not changed to conform with our spelling pattern. As you'll hear me mention in other videos, English is a syllabically based language that uses an accentually based alphabet. So no wonder English spelling is weird when it's not even using its own alphabet per se. Now, when that J sound When the J sound occurs at the end of a single syllable word, it is usually spelled DGE, such as the word fudge. We did a whole other video on this. When that J sound is at the end of the word, after a long vowel or a consonant, we're going to spell it GE, as in the word page. But if that J sound is followed by an E or an I, it is usually spelled GU, as in guess. A rare form is GH, such as ghost, but again, let's stick to what you're going to be using most of the time. So we have 3 different ways to express that J sound: DGE, GE, or GU, once again, depending on the word. Let's take a closer look at this. Age, apology, wagon, giant, guess, gallon, great. When we look over these words, we see a pattern, or rather we can hear a pattern. Use G for the sound J before the letters I, E, or Y, as in germ, giant, apology. Use GE for the sound J at the end of a word, such as age. Use GU for the sound G before the letters I or E, as in the word guess. And going along, I may have referred to GU as performing the same sound. No, GU is performing the sound G as opposed to J. Guess versus age. Notice the difference and the G in those words. Age, guess. And of course, there's going to be exceptions. Just to run them off for you: begin, bogey, get, geyser, gift, giggle, gimmick, girl, girdle, give, finger, forget, forgive, hunger, guarantee, tiger, together. So to try to bring this all home for you, C and G have soft and hard sounds. Soft sounds are usually followed by the letters I, E, or Y. Hard sounds are followed by other letters as well as exceptions that need to be learned. At the end of words, the soft C is usually spelled CE and the hard C is spelled CY. At the end of words, the sound J is usually spelled GE. But the sound G is usually spelled GU before I or an E. So I hope you found today's video helpful. If so, we have lots of other spelling videos you can check out or watch one of our grammar videos. In the meantime, if you could please like or subscribe, it's very much appreciated. But what's more appreciated is putting questions into the comments. Allow me to get back to you as soon as I can, and we can have a conversation about these spelling patterns. So once again, I thank you for your time, and have a great day. Bye for now.